Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Team Doctor with Jim Cool, where I take a look at user-submitted teams, I make a diagnosis, and I apply treatment. You're going to see my step-by-step team-building process, and it's going to be epic. This submission was from Luke F., a Tier 2 patron. Thank you very much, Luke, for the support and for the submission to the series. We've got here a pretty straightforward looking Pursuit Tyranitar plus Forretress team. I've got to say, this is, as is, it's not the worst team I've ever seen. It's got, a lot of logic to it. We've got the Breloom lead with fighting moves only, which synergizes with Tyranitar. Tyranitar removes the ghost type of Gengar. Breloom can then click fighting moves to its heart's content. Forretress also appreciates Gengar dead. Forretress, Breloom, and Pursuit Tar are natural teammates. They all love... Forretress and Breloom love Gengar dead. Tyranitar does the job. Swampert can't be bad. Always a nice checklist ticker. Safe vs Dragon Dance Tar, safe vs Dragon Dance Mence, safe vs Aerodactyl, safe vs Metagross. Swampert just always not too bad. And we've got a mixed Zapdos and a Salamence. I think that Luke F has identified, hey, I'm pretty weak to fighting types. These four Pokemon are not only grounded, they can't fly. They're susceptible to spikes, they're susceptible to Dugtrio, but also susceptible to fighting types. All of them. Tyranitar's weak to fighting and all the rest are neutral to fighting. So fighting types can cause damage, so Luke has chucked some fighting resistances on the team with Salamence, the most classic fighting check in the game, and Zapdos helps too, and we've got Drill Peck to supplement that weakness further. Now the problem I immediately saw with this team at a glance, you got no special check. You got no special wall, and so Pokemon like enemy Zapdos is going to be a problem, enemy Starmie, offensive Starmie, even an enemy Gengar. Those kinds of fellas, Jirachi, they're going to be problematic for you. Another thing I noticed, on this kind of team style, the Forretress plus Pursuit Tar Spikes teams, I and many others like to have Wish support on the team. Wish really helps Forretress. As a spinner that's weak to spikes, it can get worn down very easily. And, often the core of these teams are grounded and spikes vulnerable, so you commonly see on these teams Wish Salamence, or Wish Blissey, or Wish Jirachi, or something like that, to help these guys, have a bit more longevity, not be as owned by spikes. So, I'll show you the first iteration of the team I came up with. I removed the Zapdos, and I replaced, I changed the Salamence set from a Dragon Dance set into a mixed Salamence with Wish. I feel like with the Breloom, you are going in a more fast-paced direction, so I didn't want to go a full-on defensive Wish Mence, but I do think Wish support was necessary here, so I went with Wish Mix Mence. On Breloom, I changed it to... Oh, this should be Adamant Nature. I generally think that if you're leading with Breloom, you go Jolly. And if you're not leading with Breloom, you go Adamant. Jolly is important to outrun mixed Tyranitar and threaten it with Brick Break off the rip. There's nothing worse than a Breloom slower than a Tar that dies to Ice Beam. That's a tragedy. You don't want to have that happen. But in this case, I think Mix Mence is the superior lead to Breloom. So I went with that here. And I replaced Zapdos with Blissey because, as I mentioned, you need a special wall. Thunder Wave is nice because enemy Jirachi can be a problem, so I chucked on Thunder Wave to cripple enemy Jirachi, and then, with the help from Swampert and probably Raw Tyranitar, you can probably handle Jirachi decently enough. So let's take a look. I've got a replay with this variant of the team against a high-rated opponent. He was about 1570. And I'll show you it here because this highlighted some issues with this variant. And I want to show you guys my step-by-step process. This is not the final version of the team I decided on. So in the lead position, Salamence forced out Hariyama. I could have flying attack, so he doesn't know that. He goes to Melodic. and I get Breloom in on that opportunity. When you're running Breloom, I think this is what you like to do. Force a defensive switch and then double switch to Breloom. And all of a sudden, you're sporing them, and then next turn you're focus punching. Like, that gives you a lot of momentum when you make a switch like this. See, I've put the Hariyama to sleep, and I get a free focus punch. He brings in his Gengar, and then I go to Pursuit Tar. And I get a big Pursuit here. He lives it, but still enormous damage, 91%. And Melodic is problematic for the team is what I've realized. If you look at this squad, like, Melodic walls and clicks Toxic versus everything, and it's really tough to actually make progress against Melodic, so that informed a change I make later in the video that you can stay tuned for. So I go Blissey, it's my only real reprieve here, and Toxic would help. Toxic on Blissey here would help, but I think I'm forced into running T-Wave for enemy Jirachi, so I can't really afford to run Toxic. So I T-Wave him, and this hopefully forces him to refresh for a turn. I go Fori on him, and Fori can at least tank some hits and create some spikes. He's got his own Fori, so this is looking like a tough defensive matchup where he's going to spin away my spikes. I don't have a spin blocker. I go back to Fori thinking he will go back to Melodic, and then we sort of rinse repeat this situation a couple times. Let me go fast mode. But I take this opportunity to get Breloom in, and I try to do damage with Breloom. Breloom can be a nice breaker in these situations. So he's trying to play around Focus Punch by Earthquaking, but that's the best he can do. Earthquake's not doing a lot. Brick Break is doing a decent amount. And then I Focus Punch this time. He goes Gengar, and then I do something crazy. He's expecting me to go Tyranitar, so he actually goes Melodic. So I Focus Punch on his switch to Melodic. Now, as much as I'm a gamer here, as much as I'm an absolute gamer, I think that, like, the fact that I'm forced into making this really, really dangerous play just because he has a Melodic is, like, a huge problem. And Breloom is a kind of Pokemon that can make miracles happen in these matchups. Like, I can go for insane Focus Punches, get a lot of value, but I was in a lot of trouble. So right here, it's another 50-50. Is he going to hit me with Surf, or is he going to heal? So I predict he's going to heal, and then I actually crit the Focus Punch, which the Focus Punch would have put him in range of Brick Break, but he could have gone Gengar. He could have started the ball rolling again. Go Gengar, I go Tar, he goes Melodic, he heals back up. Like, there's a lot of ways for him to recover from this situation, so this crit bailed me out in a big way. Even though I'm gaming hardcore, and I did 2 insane punches, still, that was lucky. He says lol in the chat, he's a bit upset. Fair enough. You know, even though you could say I outplayed him here, Melodic is like an insanely bad matchup for my team, a huge hole that should punish me. Like, even though I played well in the game, I misplayed in the team builder. Didn't consider how bad Melodic was. And so I get Tar in here, Pursuit, and then the rest of the game is kind of just straightforward once Melodic and Gengar go down. Now I can be happy to make spikes. I can spin against his spikes. So I'll just skip ahead and it's, you know, it's whatever. Breloom comes in and applies too much pressure for him to deal with. He doesn't have a fighter check apart from Gengar. So if you're watching this, I apologize for that crit. But I wanted to show this replay to show you, like, my issues versus Melodic. And I need a miracle versus Melodic to win. So I would not say that this team is good in this variant of it because of the bad matchup against Melodic, and other bulky waters too would be problematic, like Suicune. So here is the second variant of the team I decided on. I actually brought back the mixed Zap. We brought it back. And I do like having Thunder Wave on the team. I've chucked it on the Zap instead of the Blissey. We've gone with, instead of a Wish Salamence, a Wish Blissey, and a Peck Zap, which hopefully is enough to handle the fighting types. You resist fighting and you drill Peck. I've actually gone with a minus special defense on the nature rather than minus defense to tank hits a little bit better from fighting type attacks, because that's what we want with the Zapdos to do. And threatening the turn 1 fighting types is really nice. Unfortunate thing about Zapdos leaders, you can be pretty bad versus tar lead. They force you out, and then depending on the tar set, they can cause a lot of damage. But my advice would be, you see a Tyranitar, you go swamp it first. Check what they are. If they're physical, no problem. If they are mixed, they probably just clicked Ice Beam, and then they want to click HP Grass, and then you go to Breloom on the HP Grass and force them out. So that would be my recommendation there. Mixed tar might be faster than your Breloom though. That could be problematic, but I think they would still get out of there. You can be a bit dicey versus that. You can even just attack into the Tyranitar if you don't want to risk it. You do a good chip and then you allow in like Breloom who Tara's in Mark Punch range, etc. There's ways to handle that pickle. And yeah, another change I made, I've put Earthquake on the Tyranitar over Roar, and I have also replaced Surf on the Swampert with Roar. I generally do not like to replace Surf on Swampert if it's not necessary, but here I think you needed at least one Roar user, and I like Earthquake on the Tyranitar to help versus Jirachi. Carmine Jirachi can sometimes boost out of range of Fire Blast doing anything and win the game, so Earthquake is a nice way to handle that, and then in combination with the Thunder Wave from Zapdos, you do have another tool against Jirachi to cripple it. You know, a paralyzed Jirachi would be pretty bad into this Earthquake Tar, Earthquake on Swampert as well. So we can handle Jirachi. We've got Blissey to handle special attackers. We've got Swampert. And this Mix Zap really helps in the bulky water matchup. You do huge damage, you take advantage of spikes with a lot of pressure, and you also have T-Wave. So I'll show you a couple replays with this variant of the team. Here we are against a Suicune lead, obviously an insanely good lead matchup for Zapdos, and I went with a T-Wave because it's likely he's switching out to something. I'd rather cripple something. I go to Furry on Snorlax, I think is a safe switch, and he decides to explode and get Magneton in. I think this is a super good trade. I've made a spike, and he's lost his Snorlax, which is something that can check my Zapdos. So now my Zapdos looks like a really big threat. Against the Magneton here, you can Spore if you want. If you predict that they go to a Fighting Resist. I went with Brick Break because people often sack sleep on Magneton. So, bit of a 50-50 there, and I lost that exchange. But it's okay because we have plenty of stuff to handle. Salamence, we scout out what kind of Salamence it is. It's proven to be Mixments. We go Blissey this time on an HP Grass, and now we're threatening it out with Ice Beam. I went with Wish here to support my switch in to whatever he went to. Turns out he went Metagross. I go to my Swampert. Check if he's going to Hidden Power me. He does. That tells me it's Hidden Power Grass, so good info. Swampert can't beat this. Go Blissey. Just go for a toss. It's going to hit Metagross. It's going to hit everything decently well. In comes Metagross again. Toss again. Good chip. Spike plus toss. Pretty nice. I go Swampert here. Because I'm happy if he explodes. I only really need the Swampert for this Metagross. Since it's not a physical Salamence, Swampert doesn't check it anyway. I don't think he has Tyranitar here. It would destroy his own Snorlax and Suicune with the sand. And if it does, he does have Tyranitar. I actually have a Breloom as well, which can handle Tyranitar. It can live a +1 HP bug and Brick Break, or it can Mach Punch. So, turns out that it is Heracross. So I go Zap. And this is an example of how we handle the fighting types a little bit, but this is a different position. If I just went straight to Zapdos, I'd be winning instantly, but I went to Blissey instead. Bit of a misplay, perhaps. So we have to go Tar here and make Sand so that it dies behind the sub to the Sand. And I stay with Tar. There's a chance he misses Mega Horn. Everything's dead anyway coming in. And I sack my Breloom because Zapdos is more important to take out Suicune. And losing 2 Pokemon to the Heracross there is totally fine because Zapdos and Blissey can clean up this game. We defeat the Magneton. We defeat the Suicune. And it's over. So, yeah, this team, it's like a more aggressive take on a Forretress Spikes team. And I think it's really fun. I really enjoy it. Might use it myself on the ladder. Here's another game. And this is the Tyranitar lead situation I was talking about before. I just go to swamp it. Luckily, it's a Dragon Dance task, so we're all good. No threat of HP Grass or anything crazy. Snorlax enters the picture, takes a huge Earthquake, so that tells me he really doesn't have a good Swampert switch in. Or he thought I was clicking Water Move. And Forretress can just come in and make spikes into this Snorlax. No problem at all. We're gonna make 2 spikes. In comes Magneton, I don't even mind. We've got 2 spikes up. That's all you could ask for. And he's a Magneton lacking HP Fire, so we even get a 3rd layer. No worries. And this is why I think I like HP Bug on this Forretress. Because you don't mind Mag. Like, if you make the spike, you can often make 2 spikes into Mag, or even 3 if they lack HP Fire. Forretress actually has a really good chance to live HP Fire from full health, so I say F Mag. Who cares about Mag? Because once Forretress dies and you've made the spikes, Breloom comes in and you're applying so much pressure. It's unfortunately, this was a speed tie and he won. Breloom and Magneton have the same base speed, and he was also maxed out there. In comes Salamence, no problem. I go Bliss. I don't want to take too much damage on my Swampert. Could potentially be a problem. So I use Blissey here. And I go for an Ice Beam, which would KO Salamence, forces it out at the very least. And it turns out to be a weird physical offense plus Scarm structure. You don't see this too often. Mag Scarm. So I just go Zapdos. I mean, look at this position for Zapdos. Zapdos is so good here. It's forcing out this Scarm. Everything on the team can't come in at all. I mean, Zapdos is going insane here. I believe we force in the Snorlax and it drops. To some Thunderbolts, absolutely. And in comes Dragon Dance Salamence. And because, you know, a lot of the game plan of these kinds of teams apply a bunch of pressure to Swampert. But the good thing about having Breloom, it's a backup check to Tar with Mach Punch. So I'm happy to... My Swampert has taken a lot of damage from this Salamence, forcing it to... You know, he's EV to live the Ice Beam with the special defense. And then gets 2 big HP Flyings on me. I go for a Greedy Protect, because why not? I might need the health. And I Ice Beam. In comes Tyranitar. I Earthquake on the Dragon Dance. I don't Protect this time. I thought he might Dragon Dance on the Protect. I was playing around that. But no problem. His Tar is dead to the Spikes next time, and Breloom is forcing it out with Mach Punch. Breloom can Spore this Skarmory. Turns out to be an Aerodactyl. I actually decided to go Tyranitar and save Breloom. Because if he HP flies, I resist it. He's unlikely to Earthquake, because I've shown his Zapdos and Tar wasn't revealed at this point, so he's unlikely to Earthquake into my Tar. And I pursued for a lot of damage against him. And I decide here to just Fire Blast this Skarm down. He actually, I missed the Fire Blast and he roars Breloom in. But this is no worries, I go for Spore. And then I Focus Punch. But he actually wakes up and makes another Spike. Doesn't really matter that much though, like the extra Spike isn't huge. And then the game comes down to, unfortunately, a Rock Slide flinch chance. So I can't really do much about that. This is the game plan of rock spam type teams. You've got the DD Tar, the Aero, and even the Salamence. All these Pokemon force in Swampert. They're trying to apply as much pressure as possible to Swampert. So it does help to have the Breloom to take a bit of pressure off Swampert in checking Tyranitar. And we have ways to chip down this Aerodactyl. But in the end game, it still came down to a chance. So he could have won this if he got the Rock Slide flinches. GG Jimmy says, GG friend. And yeah, he got the flinch, but then he missed the rock slide, and I crunched for the victory. Yeah, a bit unfortunate at the end there, but no worries. We got there. I think that this team feels solid to me, and I would like to use it further, perhaps make even more additions to it and alterations in the future. But as it stands, I'm having fun with this one on the few times I tested it. I did lose some. You know, as a biased, egotistical gamer, I did not include the replays of my losses. And you must forgive me. But that's, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope this was helpful to Luke F. I think, yeah, the team you submitted showed an understanding of what Forretress archetypes want. They want Pursuit Tar, and they want to stack things that want Gengar going as well. The Breloom. You know, not too much. You don't want to be too all in on Pursuit Tar, but I think Breloom is sensible. It's no problem. And I think that the Mix Zap also was a good idea. I changed it to Thunder Wave. I changed the EVs a bit, but Mix Zap on this archetype is fine. It is a threat that also helps with fighters, and I think that's that does a lot of stuff in one slot that assists the team. So, yeah. This was a cool one. Thanks for watching. Check out more Team Doctor in the future. If you want to submit a team, take a look in the description for my Patreon link. Tier 2 patrons are able to submit a team for the series. Thank you very much. And I'll catch you later.